Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Diana. I'm representing the Kerala Tribal Land Rights. I'm talking on that. And I'm working as an assistant professor at Government Law College, Ernakulam. Before moving on to the topic, let me talk about the characteristics of a tribe, which will make specifically clear what is the importance of the land rights to a tribal person. Here, when we talk about a tribe, whatever may be the definitions that we see, we could see that one of the special characteristics that is required is they do have a definite area, or they occupy the same territory, or they live in a particular geographical area that mark them or that define them as a tribal community or a tribe. So based upon that, we can see what is the interrelationship that exists between the land and the tribal rather than a plainsman or a common man. So based upon the analysis of different definitions existing on the tribe, we can see that land remains as the basis of social, economic, cultural, and religious identity of the scheduled tribes. So here we can see that their lives are very closely interlinked with the community or the area or the geography in which they are living. That is mainly the forest. They depend upon the forest for food, fuel, medicine, fodder, and livelihood. So based on this common territory occupation, when they are occupying the forest, they are termed as forest dwellers. And these communities incorporate within them the nomads, pastoral community, transhumant community, etc. That is the traveling community. But their travel is limited within the forest area that they live. Again, there are another type of community that can be seen all over the Kerala is communities living in the fringes and the associated forests, because when these forests were reserved, when they were made reserved through the then existing legislation, those people, the forest dwellers, whose original abode is the forest, that they were living as the eyes and ears of the forest, had to move out, but they do not know how to live outside the forest. So they were living in the fringes of the forest and the areas which are associated with the forest, so that these people have their living or they depend upon their living in the forest itself. So all these communities, what is relevant to note is that all these communities, both those who are living inside the forest and those who have moved out of the forest, or both the nomadic communities, all these lost their abode, original abode, due to various reasons. So before going into the reasons or before going into the legislations, let us see what is the position or what India talks about the tribal rights under the basic law of the land, that is the constitution. Constitution says that the constitutional framers, during the framing of the Constituent Assembly, during the debates itself, they have decided that the actual notification of a specific group of people as a scheduled tribe is left to the constitutional wisdom of the president. That is, there shouldn't be any bias and there shouldn't be any problem while deciding an area as tribal area or a community as a scheduled tribe by the state or the central government, so that it is left to the constitutional wisdom of the president. That is one of the beautiful power which has been envisaged under the Indian Constitution. Again, when we look into the types of legislation that would be existing on the tribal people, we could see that there are two sets of legislations. That is, mostly the state laws would be governing the land, agriculture, and the money laundering, etc., that is practiced among these community. So the law relating to the tribal people that is operating within the state, that is, those relating to the matters in the state or the concurrent list, which has the objective of the effect of bettering their lot within the state. And the other set refers to the legislations that are enacted specifically by the parliament for their general benefit. So these two sets of legislation, along with the power of the president to describe a specific area as a scheduled tribe or a scheduled area, remains the basis of the constitution. Now, we are specifically coming to the right to land. Apart from any other rights that is talked over the tribal rights, this is one of the legal framework, very complicated and which is also subject to abuse relating to the right of tribal people over the land. Because as I have told in the beginning, tribal communities living in the forest or the reserved forest and those outside them. The Kerala society, if we look into, we can see the tribals are excluded and marginalized. And they are considered as one of the lowest group in the caste hierarchy. And especially when they come to the land ownership, they suffer a lot. When we look at the development of the Kerala, during 1957, the state of Kerala was formed. But until 1950s, the land system existed in Kerala is typically a Janmi Kudiyan, that is landlord-tenant relationship system that prevailed in Kerala. This actually accentuated an oppressive caste system, and this pushed the Adivasis, that is the tribal people, to the concept of adimai. That means they were led to slavery or servitude, and they were dispossessed and displaced from their original abode. And therefore, what happened is that they had been compelled to pawn their dignity and their human rights at the feet of the caste-based society. So here, when I am referring to this landlord-tenant system, this system is particularly offering no laws to protect the land or the tenants' rights or the homestead that they were living in. And they were evicted unnecessarily. And here we can see that the social customs that gave this landlord a preemptive right to evict these tribal people at any point of time. That means at the will of the landlord. And these people, that is the tribal people, were considered as the mere cultivators in the land, which is leased to them either under the name, that is leases, which is called in Malayalam, that is patam or verum patam. That means there is no legal protection that is offered to them. They can be evicted at any time, and they are treated as mere cultivators. And along with this, clubbed with the system of land practices, social innumerable malpractices like untouchability, inapproachability, unseeability, and the concept of polluting caste, etc., created a much more aggravated problem relating to the land rights to the tribals. As well as these people were never allowed to enter into the schools or the worship places or they were not allowed to use any public services at all. And of course, we know that where there arises such an oppression, there would be resistance after some time. So the resistance that arose during the later years, we can see that they struggled to liberate themselves from various sectors. And one of the sector, as we have discussed, is the agricultural sector, where the political mobilization and the social mobilization brought in radical reforms, where this is closely associated with the land rights that is to be given to these people. They began to fight for their land that is to be given back to them, that they wanted to have their original abode. But we can see that until now, till today, when I'm talking about this land rights of the tribals, they remain as the most marginalized section of Kerala by the land alienation, dispossession, and their persistent struggle to retain the land ownership. And it is I shouldn't talk anything without talking about the social reforms that took place in Kerala relating to the land of the Adivasis or the tribals or the Dalits. That is, by the early 20th century, due to the impact of several social reformations, Kerala managed to get rid of untouchability, one of the malpractice that was existing, and the other malpractices which alienated these tribal people to the marginalized section. And another important social reform was Vaikam Satyagraha, which was organized in 1924-25, which is a systematically organized protest movement in Kerala undertaken to secure the rights of the downtrodden classes. Along with this, Sri Narayana Guru's teaching on his ideology and the propagation through the formation of Sri Narayana Dharma Paribalana Yogam in 1903 also played an important role in the protection of the tribal rights. Then another important element is Guruvayur Satyagraha that happened in 1931-32. That's a movement for temple entry and abolition of untouchability. And as a result of this, there was a temple entry proclamation in 1936 that laid the foundation for the social transformation of the Kerala and provided the base for the mass awakening of the marginalized sections of the Kerala society against the social evils and the injustices. And one of the famous reformers, which we should never forget regarding the tribal people, is the Ayyangali. Ayyangali is a person who made a revolt against the oppressive social structure and the tyrannical dogmas that existed in Kerala. And he became an everlasting example for the marginalized sections of the Kerala, especially the tribal people of the Kerala. But the thing is to be noted is that even though these movements were taking place, till day, no social change which can be said to be a landmark can be seen in the Kerala community regarding the land rights of the tribals. And these people who were suffering for the decades, we can see that the frustration among the Adivasis due to the gradual land loss over the years, and this led to the loss of livelihood, the hunger, malnutrition, starvation, and the death among them began to increase. And this denial of the livelihood and the struggle for the sheer survival had led to the formation of several Adivasi struggle groups for the land rights across the state. And there was a rise in the Adivasi land rights movement. And I would like to cite some of the examples. I'm not going deep into that due to the paucity of time, but these incidents of the tribal conflicts for the land has happened in Kerala and still existing. That is Adivasi land struggle that happened in Kannur district, Muttanga land struggle, Aralam farm protest, Chengara land struggle, Ariyappa Bhusamaram, then Puyamkutti land struggle, Adivasi welfare forum land struggle, Perinchamputty land struggle, etc. are some of the examples or the incidents of the tribal conflicts over the land. Now let me come to the legislative analysis. I have told you we'll be making analysis based upon the situation that is existing and thereupon about the legislative area. And while we are discussing about the constitutional background, we have seen that two sets of legislation would be operating, that is state legislation bearing upon the land as well as their agriculture, as well as the other legislation by the central government. So the Land Reforms Act of 1963, which all over the world has discussed about this, the Kerala Land Reforms Act of 1963, because it is termed to be a revolutionary movement regarding the change of or the reformation that is brought in the land and the man relationship. So it is also thought that that would bring a revolutionary movement for the landless Adivasis. Sorry, it's tribals. Okay, Adivasis means tribals. Okay. However, The proper implementation of the act among these tribal people is another story. That is, according to the act, government was to distribute the surplus and the revenue forest land to the Kerala's landless poor. But it has not taken place. That is, however, till date, the act has not been fully implemented. This resulted in a huge number of landless people in the state. So now let's see what is the impact of land reforms. Here we can see that although the Adivasis, that is the tribals, form the backbone of the agricultural economy of the Kerala, they have not yet benefited from the land reforms that the Kerala government initiated in the 1950s. Because as far as the landlessness in Kerala is concerned, the tribals form around 85% of the landless people in the state. And the state is witnessing a steady decline in food production and farming. Since agriculture has hit a bottom low in the state, and the state is largely dependent on the neighboring states for its food requirement, the impact is never felt on the tribal people. As such, the government of Kerala, instead of bringing back these tribal people to the agriculture and the farming, but they were thrown to the fringes of the society and had reduced them to the people, those who are living in 3-cent colonies. So they were allotted a small area of land just for the construction of their simple houses. And there was a lack of will among the successive governments that came to the power in Kerala to properly implement various land legislation policies and to honestly redistribute the land among these tribal people. Now, let us see other legislations. Apart from the land reforms, there are many other legislations. That is, a look at the various legislations initiated shows that there is a huge gap in the introduction of the policies and their actual effective implementation. That is, these tribal people, their lands have been lost not in a single transaction, but it has been lost through decades, through different phases, through different activities. That may be due to the legislations promulgated by different governments during those time, and it may be due to the activities of the plainsmen. It may be due to the innocence on the part of these people also. So the reasons behind this losses: encroachment, land grabbing, forest notification, and the formation of the private plantation by the companies. Moreover, the innocence, illiteracy, and the introvert attitude of the tribal people are also exploited by the plainsmen. The tribals are exploited by the landlords, money launderers, forest contractors, as well as the revenue officers. And the tribal lands reach the hands of the non-tribal in various illicit ways, such as giving them narcotics, liquor, paying paltry sums of money at an exorbitant rate of interest, and sometimes they would be using certain deceptive measures or certain aggressive means, such as use of force and threat also, were some of the means to take away the lands of these tribals from their hands. And what will happen to these people? This alienation of these land rights, that is from the forest, from the very nature, and their restriction on the access to the forest produce, makes these people dependent on the other sources of income, and they are forced to migrate to the other places for the work, such as casual labor. That is, actually, they are like fish out of water. And when we look at the Land Reforms Act, there were certain exclusions from the purview of the ceiling area. That is the maximum extent of the land a person or an adult person or a family can hold has been decided by the Kerala Land Reforms Act of 1963. But during that time, we should know that the plantations were excluded from the purview of the Land Reforms Act also. So this also led to the ghettoization of these tribal communities, as well as they were pushed to the reserves. And as I said earlier, they now concentrated into 3 cent plot colonies. So whether this is an enough one, whether they will be able to live a fruitful life by provision of these 3 cent plot colonies to them. But what is the role of the government to bring them back to their original abode? So there are hues and cries from various parts of the state to protect the rights of these tribal people and bring them back in harmony with the forest or the related forest associated areas of the forest. But we can see that there are provisions of legislations are introduced, but the government has failed to provide enough land to these people. This is not because there is no legislation, but because the legislative provisions are not implemented. Instead that, we can see that the state is very indifferently acting to the rights of these tribal people. And moreover, the major part of the mainstream society at times look at these people as the dissenting voices. They have got a dissenting voices or a feeble voice. And they are sometimes, when they make problem, they are considered as a nuisance and disruption to the India's development story. But when we look at the legislative attempts that is made by the state of Kerala, an evaluation committee, which was appointed by the state of Kerala after the formation, recommended for a legislation to curb this menace that is happening towards these tribal people. But we can see that this recommendation and the consequent legislation in 1975 was kept in the cold storage of the Kerala Legislative Assembly for many years. And all the governments, the various governments which came one after the other, slept over the report, and none of them was bold enough to restore the lands that was alienated from the poor tribals. Now let us see which are those legislations. Apart from the land reforms, there are 2 important legislations which were enacted in Kerala state for the restoration of the alienated lands from the tribal people. That is, the state of Kerala enacted the Kerala Scheduled Tribe Restriction on Transfer of Land and Restoration of Alienated Lands Act 1975, and its object was providing restriction on the transfer of the land of the members of the scheduled tribe in the state of Kerala, and for the restoration of the lands alienated by such members and for the matters connected therewith. And this has been made under the entry 6 of the list 3 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution. And this being a state legislation. It is placed from the attack of the judiciary by placing it in the 9th schedule. However, only on 24th January 1986, see, it was enacted in 1975, and it was only in 24th January 1986, a notification was issued bringing the said act in force with retrospective effect from 1st January 1982. So the days and the years are passing by. And again, we can see that the Kerala Scheduled Tribes Restriction on Transfer of Lands and Restoration of Alienated Land Rules 1986 were framed for the effective implementation of the Act of 1975. Here, an introduction says that a non-obstant clause in the Act imposes restriction on the transfer of the property after the commencement of this Act. Any transfer which is affected by the member of the scheduled tribe of immovable property possessed enjoyed, or owned by him to a person other than the member of the scheduled tribe without the previous consent in writing of the competent authority is said to be an invalid transfer. And the competent authority decided under this act is the district collector. And the officer appointed, he is officer appointed by the government to be the competent authority for the purpose of this act. And this act also invalidated certain transfers made by the tribal to the persons other than the tribal after 1st January 1960 and before the commencement of this act. That means the transaction, the land transaction between a tribal and a non-tribal, that is a plainsman, after 1960 is said to be an invalid one under this act. But these provisions are looking to be beautiful, but it will never be implemented, because we know that the plainsmen who migrated, who alienated this land from the tribal people and who occupied this land as having higher authority over the government. And despite the 1975 Act having been brought into force and the rules have been framed for the effective implementation by the state, and the revenue officers are taking no steps for the effective implementation of the Act. The Act and the rules prescribed several stages for its content to be brought into practice. But the government realizes that even after the 1986, the rules and the implementation orders which were promulgated by the government, it will not be coming into force. Therefore, the government realized that the provisions are beautiful and that would serve the purpose of ameliorating the problems of the scheduled tribes. But this would lead to law and order situation in various parts of the state. So I said that these people, that these alienees, that is the people from whom these lands have been alienated, and the people who acquired these land is having higher say among the community. And therefore, the state has repealed this legislation, 1975 legislation. See, the 1960, a committee is getting appointed. They are recommending for a legislation. A legislation is being prepared in 1975, enacting the same, but it has been kept in cold storage, and the rules been framed in 1986 with retrospective effect from 1982. But the provisions are beautiful, but never get implemented. So based upon this, still there, even after that, the problem is there. The Adivasis or the tribal people remains landless. So a new act is passed. That is the Kerala Restriction on Transfer by and Restoration of Land to the Alien Scheduled Tribes Act of 1999. Here, the land is defined as any agricultural land. And certain transfers, such as any transfer of land possessed, enjoyed, or owned by a member of the scheduled tribe to a person other than the member of scheduled tribe, effected on or after the first day of January 1960 and before the commencement of this act, shall be deemed to be invalid. But this will never get implemented. And again, the proviso adduced to this section makes it clear that if the extent of the land transferred is less than 2 hectares, such transfers are not invalid. So the provision itself makes a loophole for the implementation, for the non-implementation of this act. So this is a legislative arena of the state of Kerala regarding the land rights of the tribals. And till this day, when I'm talking, this legislation has not been brought to force, or none of the Adivasis or none of the tribal people were benefited by this legislation, and they're not back to their home. And when I was segregating or separating these tribal people into two, that is those people, those who are living near the fringes of the forest, those who are associated with the forest, and those people who are living within the forest. What is their plight? That is, the forest legislation has given them a very, very, very good slap to their land rights. That is, almost 60% of the forest cover is found to be in tribal areas. However, through the legislation enacted in the name of protection and upgradation of the forest cover, that was classified the forest as reserve forest, protected forest, as well as wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. And what happens is that since the moment of reservation, since the moment this area is restricted as a protected forest, and since it is turning to a sanctuary or a national park, that will result in the negation of every type of right that was enjoyed for the centuries by these tribal people. That is, their original abode has been lost to them. That is, this resulted in marginalization of the tribal communities from their original abode. Now, they are considered as encroachers in their homeland. And the very reason for this development, the major legislations are three, that is the Indian Forest Act of 1927, the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and the Present Forest Conservation Act of 1980. And these legislation empowers the government to declare any area to be reserved forest, protected forest, or village forest. And the latter allows any area to be constituted as a protected area, namely national park, wildlife sanctuary, tiger reserve, or community conservation area. And the claims of the people who resided in this area were settled by an officer appointed under this legislation is known as the Forest Settlement Officer. But in most of the time, all the cases that is represented before this Forest Settlement Officer will be negated due to the absence of the evidence of their right. And here we can see a revolutionary piece of legislation which is being brought in by the central government in this area. That is the Scheduled Tribes and the other traditional forest dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act of 2006. It is known as the Forest Rights Act of 2006, which should be said as historical piece of legislation, or which is a revolutionary piece of legislation if it gets implemented. That is, in 2006, the central government has realized that historical injustice is done to the scheduled tribe. And therefore, they have taken a bold step enacting a new piece of legislation. And they are always referred as forest dwellers, these tribal people. But their rights are rarely recognized by the authorities, and in the absence of the real ownership of land, they will always remain as marginalized local dwellers. And therefore, the Parliament has enacted this act. And under this act, the many rights have been granted to them. And these rights have been categorized into the title rights, the use rights, the management rights, and the relief and the development rights. All these rights are relating to the land rights of the tribal people. And the most important among the various rights mentioned here is the land right. And the land right that is granted to them can be treated as either individual or a common occupation for habitation or self-cultivation, because tribe is a section of people. It's not an individual, but it's a community. So the occupation that may be given to them, it can be either individual or a common. Okay, but this act is also not implemented in Kerala, and most of the claims under this act is still pending. See the 2006 enactment and the amendment rules which has been brought in 2012. This brings more clarity to the provisions, because the 2006 Act had certain dilemmas or certain interpretational differences regarding the implementation. But the 2012 rules brought in more clarity to the provisions regarding recognition of the forest dwellers' rights to conserve, manage the community forest resources, and give them more powers So this is ensured through the Gram Sabha, that is the most important authority among these tribal people, and that will ensure the sustainable management of the property that is granted to them. Under these 2012 rules, the district level committee shall ensure that all particularly vulnerable tribal groups receive their habitat right in consultation with the concerned traditional institutions, and their claims for habitat right are filed before the concerned Gram Sabhas wherever necessary, by recognizing the floating nature of their Gram Sabhas. And this would incorporate the communities that we were referring in the beginning, that is the pastoralist communities, the transhuman communities, or the nomadic communities also. And these rules also provide for the post-claim support to the holders of forest rights, because they are suffering for a for a long time. And merely giving them land rights will not be enough to bring them to a sustainable way of life. So this include the government schemes such as land improvement, land productivity, basic amenities, and other livelihood measures, which is relevant to the upliftment of the forest dwelling scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers whose rights have been recognized and vested under the Forest Rights Act are provided. So due to the paucity of time, let me conclude. I have not gone deep into the legislation. But when we Indians are celebrating the 74th independent anniversary, the vow we have taken at the institution of the Constitution, that is, these tribal people will be brought to the mainstream of India, and they will be given more powers, and they will be given their rights back. But till this day, due to the lack of political will, their rights have been disregarded strategically. Lack of initiative from the concerned state government is also quite evident. And the central government has shown an enthusiasm to take the appropriate action to eliminate the loopholes in the central legislation. And this is to be immediately followed by a strong direction from the political side and bearing upon the constitutional mandate. And state government has to make adequate measures to support the land rights of the tribal people, because they are also humans. They are also like each one of us. Thank you.